The information provided in this presentation is strictly for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute professional career counseling, legal, or financial advice. The employment market in the United States is highly dynamic, subject to at-will employment laws, rapidly shifting economic variables, and unpredictable industry trends. The strategies, case studies, and historical trends discussed in this content represent potential outcomes based on specific variables and do not guarantee any employment, interview, financial result, or career advancement. Securing an internship or a permanent position depends entirely on individual effort, localized market conditions, precise timing, and subjective employer discretion. Viewers must conduct their own extensive due diligence, adapt these educational frameworks to their unique situations and local jurisdictions, and consult with certified career professionals or academic advisors when making significant professional decisions. By continuing to watch, you acknowledge that you are solely responsible for your own career trajectory, your outreach strategies, and any actions taken based on this educational content. Right now, at this exact second, there is a multi-million-dollar brand in the United States desperately scrolling through a mountain of identical lifeless resumes, begging for just one candidate who actually understands how the modern internet works. And while they are doing that, hundreds of thousands of ambitious people are sitting in their bedrooms, staring at a generic rejection email, completely paralyzed by the greatest paradox in the American corporate system. You know the paradox intimately. You are told you need experience to get the job, but you absolutely need the job to get the experience. It is a vicious, seemingly inescapable cycle that has crushed more ambitions than any economic downturn in history. But what if I told you that the entire system you are participating in is fundamentally broken? What if the traditional application process you have been taught by your university professors, your parents, and every standard career counselor in the country is actually designed to systematically keep you out? Let us look at the brutal reality of the modern job hunt. When you click apply on LinkedIn, Indeed, or Glassdoor for a social media internship in New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, or even a remote position based in Austin, your resume does not go to a human being. It goes straight into a digital shredder known as an applicant tracking system. Historical trends in recruitment data show that these automated filters instantly reject an overwhelming majority of applicants before a hiring manager even logs into their computer for the day. Why? Because your meticulously crafted document lacks the arbitrary, highly specific keywords the algorithm was programmed to detect. You are spending hours filling out redundant application portals, retyping the exact same information that is already on your uploaded PDF, just to be filtered out by a machine. You are playing a rigged game where the corporate house always wins. Yet, behind the scenes, a completely different game is being played. There is a hidden backdoor into the social media and digital marketing industry. A highly tactical, completely unorthodox approach that a very small fraction of individuals are using to bypass the automated algorithms entirely. These individuals have zero corporate experience. They have never worked in an agency. Some of them do not even possess a college degree or a traditional academic background in marketing. But they are successfully landing coveted roles at top-tier digital marketing firms, rapid-growth e-commerce startups, and massive influencer management companies across the United States. They are accomplishing this by leveraging a specific psychological trigger that completely short-circuits the traditional human resources process. Later in this masterclass, I am going to reveal the exact mechanism, a strategy we will call the proof-of-work Trojan horse, which forces hiring managers and chief executives to not only open your email but to actively prioritize your application over candidates who have years of traditional, documented experience. If you click away from this video now, you are resigning yourself to the resume black hole, doomed to compete against 10,000 identical, highly qualified candidates in a bureaucratic system meticulously designed to ignore you. You are here because you are deeply tired of the ghosting. You are exhausted from spending your evenings tailoring cover letters for companies that do not even have the professional courtesy to send an automated rejection response. You know with absolute certainty that you understand consumer psychology, short-form video trends, algorithm retention metrics, and community management better than the out-of-touch executives currently running these corporate campaigns. You consume this content daily. You speak the native language of the platforms, but you simply cannot figure out how to translate that innate digital fluency into a recognized professional opportunity that actually pays the bills and gets your foot in the door. That frustration stops today. In this comprehensive deep dive masterclass, I am going to completely dismantle everything you thought you knew about landing a social media internship in the United States. We are not going to talk about formatting your resume font or choosing the right action verbs. We are not going to discuss how to give a firm handshake, what color tie to wear to a Zoom interview, or how to answer the tired question of what your greatest weakness is. Those are outdated tactics for a completely outdated era of business. Instead, we are going purely tactical and incredibly specific. We are going to explore documented case studies of how individuals with zero industry connections and zero prior experience successfully infiltrated the market by shifting their fundamental approach from passively asking for a job to aggressively demonstrating undeniable, immediate value. I am going to walk you through the precise architecture of a high-converting cold outreach campaign, designed specifically for the modern U.S. media landscape. We will examine the exact types of businesses you need to target for maximum potential outcomes. You will learn exactly why applying to Fortune 500 companies as a beginner is a statistical trap that leads to burnout, and why pivoting your focus toward boutique marketing agencies, venture-backed tech startups, and aggressive direct-to-consumer brands will exponentially increase your chances of securing a role. These specific organizations operate on speed, agility, and execution, not bureaucratic red tape and academic pedigree. They do not care where you went to school. They only care if you have the proven ability to capture human attention and convert that attention into measurable engagement and revenue. Furthermore, I will break down the transformative concept of the permissionless portfolio. You have been told your entire life that you need a paying client to build a portfolio, but I will demonstrate exactly how to construct a world-class, undeniable body of work over the next 48 hours without anyone ever giving you permission or hiring you to do so. We will dissect the anatomy of the perfect brand audit. I will show you how to analyze a target company's current social media strategy, identify their glaring weaknesses, conceptualize a strategic pivot, create mock assets to illustrate your vision, and present a fully developed, actionable solution directly to the ultimate decision maker. This is the monumental difference between telling a company you can do the work and actually doing the work before they even know your name. By the time you finish watching this presentation, you will possess a comprehensive, step-by-step blueprint. You will understand how to completely bypass the human resources department, how to locate the exact direct email address of the chief marketing officer, the creative director, or the founder, and how to craft a message so compelling and valuable that ignoring it would be a literal detriment to their business operations. This is not about getting lucky in a crowded job market. This is about leveraging the historical trends of digital communication, deeply understanding the immediate pain points of modern U.S. businesses, and positioning yourself as the undeniable, frictionless solution to their most pressing problems. You are about to transition from being a passive, hopeful applicant into an active, high-value asset that companies fight to bring on board. Pay very close attention, remove all distractions from your environment, and take extensive notes, because the framework I am about to outline is the definitive, uncompromising guide to breaking into the highly competitive U.S. digital marketing industry, starting from absolute zero. The biggest lie you have been sold by traditional academic institutions and outdated career counseling centers is the absolute necessity of institutional permission. You have been systematically conditioned to believe that your inherent value in the marketplace is strictly defined by a piece of paper, a specific university name, or a documented list of previous employers who formally authorized you to manage their digital assets. This fundamentally flawed mindset is exactly what keeps millions of highly capable, digitally native individuals completely locked out of the United States corporate ecosystem. You are waiting for a gatekeeper to hand you a key, entirely unaware that the gate itself has been left wide open for anyone willing to walk through it with undeniable proof of competence. In the rapidly accelerating landscape of 2026, the traditional resume is rapidly becoming obsolete for entry-level creative roles. Hiring managers at aggressive growth startups, modern digital agencies, and dynamic e-commerce brands are no longer scanning for your GPA or your extracurricular activities. They are ruthlessly hunting for one singular defining trait: the demonstrated ability to generate measurable attention and convert that attention into actionable business results. They are looking for individuals who can completely bypass the theoretical and immediately execute the practical. To truly understand this paradigm shift, we must examine real-world scenarios and potential outcomes based on historical trends of modern recruitment. Let us look at a detailed case study of a specific approach that completely circumvents the traditional application graveyard. Consider the trajectory of an individual we will call Michael, a 22-year-old based in Chicago who possessed absolutely zero formal marketing experience, no agency internships, and no elite industry connections. Like hundreds of thousands of his peers in 2026, Michael initially followed the standard failing protocol. He spent 3 agonizing months submitting over 400 identical resumes through automated online portals to various mid-sized media companies across the country. The result was a mathematically predictable silence. The automated systems filtered him out before a human eye ever glanced at his name. However, instead of surrendering to market friction, Michael completely abandoned the passive application strategy and adopted an aggressive, highly targeted proof-of-work methodology. He stopped asking for the opportunity to prove his worth and simply started proving it. Michael identified a specific, venture-backed direct-to-consumer athletic wear brand headquartered in Denver, Colorado. This company was generating massive revenue through traditional search engine marketing, but was fundamentally failing to capture the younger demographic on short-form video platforms. Their existing content was overly produced, deeply corporate, and completely lacked the native organic feel required to trigger algorithm distribution in the current ecosystem. Michael did not send them a resume detailing his theoretical knowledge of content strategy. He did not fill out their online application form. Instead, he spent 48 hours completely auditing their existing social media presence. He identified precisely why their current hooks were failing to retain viewership past the first 3 seconds. He analyzed their competitor landscape and highlighted 3 specific content formats their rivals were leveraging to capture massive market share. But he did not stop at simply pointing out the flaws. He moved into the most critical phase of this strategy, which is actionable execution. Michael took out his smartphone, walked to a local park, and filmed 3 distinct, raw native-style video concepts specifically designed for this brand. He edited these videos himself, applying the exact pacing, text overlays, and audio trends that were historically proven to drive high retention rates. He drafted the accompanying copy, researched the precise distribution tags, and packaged this entire strategic pivot into a single, highly readable brief. He then bypassed the human resources department entirely and found the direct email address of the chief marketing officer, using standard digital search tools. He sent a completely frictionless message that essentially stated he noticed a specific leak in their current retention strategy and had already built 3 ready-to-publish assets to immediately solve the problem, free of charge. Now, I want you to step out of your own shoes and imagine if you are that chief marketing officer. You are a highly stressed executive in 2026, managing a multi-million-dollar advertising budget, and you are under immense pressure from your board of directors to increase organic reach. You have a stack of 300 identical resumes sitting on your desk from applicants who are all begging you to teach them how to do the job. And then, sitting right at the top of your inbox, is a message from Michael. Michael is not asking for training. Michael is not asking you to take a risk on his potential. Michael has proactively identified a massive problem in your current infrastructure, provided a highly analytical breakdown of why it is failing, and literally handed you the completed solution on a silver platter. The psychological difference between these 2 scenarios is astronomical. The traditional applicant represents a massive investment of time, energy, and corporate resources. Michael represents immediate, frictionless value. The potential outcomes of this hyper-targeted approach consistently dwarf the success rates of passive applications. The chief marketing officer did not ask for Michael to send his resume. He immediately scheduled a video interview, and Michael secured a highly paid, remote internship position within 72 hours, completely bypassing every single candidate who possessed more traditional experience but failed to demonstrate actual competence. This case study is not an anomaly. It represents the absolute baseline requirement for breaking into a highly competitive industry from a position of zero leverage. You must manufacture your own leverage by providing upfront, undeniable value. The process of building this specific type of asset, which we refer to as the permissionless portfolio, requires a deep, meticulous understanding of business mechanics. You cannot simply point out that a brand has bad videos. You must articulate the exact psychological and algorithmic reasons why the videos are failing and provide a statistically sound alternative. This requires you to dissect their pacing, analyze their retention drop-off points, and understand the core desires of their target demographic. You must learn to speak the language of business outcomes, shifting your vocabulary away from metrics like likes and views, and focusing heavily on concepts like viewer retention, community acquisition, and conversion velocity. Every single company in the United States currently operating in the digital space has a glaring weakness in their content pipeline. Some brands have exceptional long-form content, but are completely incapable of repurposing it into vertical formats. Other companies have brilliant product engineers, but absolutely zero understanding of how to build an engaged community. Your sole objective in this initial phase is to become a hyper-specialized diagnostic tool. You must train your eye to instantly spot these operational inefficiencies. You must become obsessed with analyzing why certain hooks fail while others succeed, cataloging these historical trends, and applying them directly to the target companies you want to work for. You are essentially offering them a free, highly specialized consulting service that immediately validates your expertise without requiring them to check your academic background or previous employment history. However, building this undeniable asset is only 50% of the equation. You can construct the most brilliant, highly converting content strategy in the history of digital marketing, but if you do not understand the exact psychological triggers required to deliver it to the decision maker, it will sit completely unnoticed in a spam folder. You cannot simply attach a massive presentation to an email and expect a busy executive to read it. There is a very specific, highly methodical sequence you must follow to bypass their internal defenses, capture their immediate attention, and force them to engage with your material. This requires a deep understanding of corporate email architecture, subject line psychology, and the precise timing of your outreach. If you execute this delivery phase incorrectly, you will permanently burn the bridge with that specific company. But if you deploy the exact psychological sequencing I am about to reveal, you will transform cold corporate contacts into aggressive advocates for your career. The mechanics of this specific outreach strategy, the exact architecture of the email, and the precise words you must use to guarantee they open your portfolio, are entirely rooted in understanding the psychological battlefield of the corporate inbox in 2026. You have to realize that the person you are emailing, whether it is the chief marketing officer of a booming Austin tech startup or the creative director of a New York digital agency, is experiencing severe cognitive overload. Their inbox is a literal war zone. They are receiving hundreds of messages daily from software vendors, demanding clients, internal team members, and automated platform notifications. If you send an email with a subject line that reads application for social media internship, you are immediately categorizing yourself as a chore. You become an administrative task that requires their scarce mental energy to process. Historical trends in cold email marketing conclusively prove that administrative subject lines are archived or deleted within a fraction of a second. You must pivot your strategy to become a frictionless solution rather than a cumbersome task. Let us examine the exact architecture of a high-converting outreach message through a practical case study. Imagine a 22-year-old named Sarah living in Ohio. Sarah wants to break into a remote social media role for a rapidly scaling e-commerce brand specializing in sustainable outdoor gear based in Seattle. Instead of submitting her resume to the generic human resources portal and praying for a response, she spends hours researching the organizational chart on professional networking sites. She completely ignores the standard corporate email addresses and identifies the director of marketing, a highly specific decision maker with the actual authority to bypass the algorithmic hiring systems. Using widely available, legally compliant email verification tools, she maps out the exact corporate email structure. Now she is face to face with the most critical component of the entire process, the subject line. Sarah does not ask for a job. Instead, she writes a subject line that is hyper-specific, completely customized, and instantly addresses a current, painful operational bottleneck. Her subject line reads, 3 specific retention concepts for the new winter campaign. Put yourself in the position of that marketing director. Imagine if you are currently stressing over the fact that your massive winter campaign video assets are flatlining on social platforms. Your viewership is dropping by 80% in the first 3 seconds, and your customer acquisition costs are skyrocketing. Suddenly, an email appears offering 3 specific retention concepts directly related to the exact problem you are desperately trying to solve today. You are not going to delete that email. The psychological friction is completely removed because the subject line signals high value and extreme relevance. You are absolutely compelled to click. Once the email is open, the body text must be ruthlessly efficient. In the fast-paced corporate environment of 2026, executives do not have the patience or the time to read a 4-paragraph essay about your childhood passion for digital media or your academic coursework in university communications. They only care about what you can do for their bottom line right now. The structure of your email must follow a highly precise framework consisting of the personalized hook, the undeniable value proposition, and the low-friction call to action. Sarah starts her email by immediately proving she has done her due diligence. She writes that she noticed their recent push on vertical video platforms for the new winter jacket line, but observed that the visual pacing in the first 3 seconds might be causing a massive drop-off in viewer retention. This introductory sentence achieves 2 monumental things. First, it proves she is actively analyzing their brand, not just blasting a copy and pasted template to 50 different companies. Second, it demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of platform analytics by using industry-specific terminology like viewer retention and visual pacing. Next, Sarah delivers the undeniable value proposition. She states that she spent her weekend building a custom portfolio containing 3 fully edited, native-style video variations using their existing public assets, specifically optimized for algorithmic distribution. She does not attach a massive video file that will automatically trigger corporate spam filters and block her message. She does not attach her generic resume. She simply states that the analytical work is completely done and sitting on a private secure link. This creates a massive psychological gap in the mind of the reader. The executive knows the solution to their immediate problem exists, and it is entirely within their grasp, costing them absolutely nothing but a few seconds to review. The final component of this architecture is the low-friction call to action. The biggest mistake novice job seekers make in cold outreach is asking for way too much, way too soon. They ask for a 30-minute introductory phone call, a formal Zoom interview, or a direct introduction right out of the gate. That is a massive administrative ask for an executive who does not know who you are. Sarah uses a soft, frictionless approach. She simply asks, "Mind if I send over the private link for you to take a look?" This specific phrasing requires a simple, one-word reply from the executive. It is completely non-threatening. If the executive says yes, they have now micro-committed to reviewing your work. You have successfully initiated a two-way, professional dialogue based entirely on your demonstrated ability to provide upfront value, completely bypassing the traditional applicant tracking systems and the standard human resources gatekeepers. Historical trends and potential outcomes based on this specific outreach methodology show a significantly higher engagement rate compared to standard job board applications. When executives see raw, unsolicited talent actively solving their immediate problems without being asked, their entire perspective on recruitment shifts. You are no longer viewed as a risky intern candidate. You are viewed as a highly proactive, highly competent asset. Even if that specific company does not have the allocated budget to hire you in that exact moment, you have forced your way into their professional network. Case studies from recent years consistently highlight individuals who utilize this exact strategy and, while not landing the immediate role, were introduced to partner agencies or contacted 3 months later when a massive budget suddenly opened up. You are fundamentally building a high-leverage professional network based on demonstrated competence rather than passive begging. However, you must be prepared for the mathematical reality that a large percentage of your emails will still go unanswered. This framework is not a magic solution. It is a statistical numbers game powered by high-quality, relentless execution. You are building an aggressive outreach pipeline. If you send one of these highly customized, value-driven emails every single day for 30 days, you are exposing your permissionless portfolio to 30 different high-level decision-makers across the United States. You are creating 30 separate opportunities for a chief executive to recognize your talent. The effort required to execute this strategy is undeniably immense. It takes significant hours to analyze a target brand, build the custom digital assets, locate the correct contact information, and draft the perfect, concise email. But you must logically ask yourself what is more exhausting: spending 4 focused hours building a custom pitch for one highly targeted company, or spending 4 agonizing hours filling out 50 automated application portals just to receive 50 automated rejection emails. The profound difference is that one path relies entirely on the broken, automated corporate lottery system, while the other path puts the control entirely in your own hands. Now, let us imagine the absolute best-case scenario. You have built an incredible permissionless portfolio. You have researched the perfect mid-sized tech company. You have successfully found the direct email of the chief marketing officer. You have crafted an email so compelling and value-driven that they immediately reply and say, "Yes, please send over the link. This sounds exactly like what we are looking for right now." You send the link, they review your custom videos, your analytical breakdown, and your strategic roadmap. They are completely blown away by your proactive hustle and your native understanding of the digital landscape. They reply 20 minutes later and say, "This is incredible work. Do you have time for a video call tomorrow afternoon?" You have done it. You have successfully secured a highly coveted interview completely outside of the traditional corporate system. But this is exactly where the vast majority of candidates completely self-destruct. They step into that video call and immediately revert back to the mindset of a subordinate student begging a teacher for a passing grade. They completely lose all the leverage they just spent days building because they do not understand the psychological dynamics of a high-level business conversation. They try to passively answer questions instead of actively controlling the narrative. If you handle this initial conversation incorrectly, all of your hard work will evaporate instantly. The specific framework you must deploy the exact moment that camera turns on, the specific questions you must ask to position yourself as an external consultant rather than a desperate intern, and the strategy to convert that informal chat into a formal paid offer, hinges on your ability to fundamentally control the psychological frame of the conversation from the very first second. You must understand that the dynamic of a traditional job interview is inherently unbalanced. The standard corporate structure places the interviewer on a pedestal as the ultimate gatekeeper of your future, while you are positioned as the subordinate beggar hoping for a scrap of opportunity. If you carry this outdated, submissive energy into your video call, the executive will immediately sense it, categorize you as a standard entry-level risk, and all the immense leverage you built with your permissionless portfolio will evaporate into thin air. You are not arriving at this meeting to be interrogated about your high school extracurricular activities or your lack of formal corporate tenure. You are arriving as an external diagnostic consultant who has already identified a massive operational failure within their marketing department and is bringing the exact blueprint required to fix it. To master this transition, we must examine the historical trends of successful high-level sales psychology. Think about the dynamic between a patient and a highly specialized surgeon. When a patient walks into a clinic with a broken arm, the surgeon does not spend the first 20 minutes desperately trying to prove their worth, reciting their medical school grades, or begging the patient to let them perform the surgery. The surgeon immediately takes control of the frame by asking highly specific, diagnostic questions. Where does it hurt? When did the pain start? What is your current mobility level? By simply asking the right questions, the surgeon inherently demonstrates absolute authority and competence. This is the exact psychological posture you must adopt when the video call connects in 2026. You are the specialist diagnosing a bleeding digital asset. Let us look at a highly specific case study of this dynamic in action. Consider a candidate named David, a 20-year-old from Austin, Texas, who managed to secure a video meeting with the chief executive officer of a rapidly expanding, venture-backed fitness software company. David had 0 marketing degrees and had never worked in a corporate office. The CEO joined the Zoom call, likely expecting the typical, nervous intern routine. But David did not wait to be asked to recite his resume. After a brief, professional greeting, David immediately initiated the diagnostic frame. He stated clearly that he appreciated the CEO taking the time, and then smoothly transitioned by saying, "Before we dive into my background, I want to make sure I completely understand the current bottlenecks in your growth pipeline. In the portfolio I sent over, I noted a massive drop-off in engagement on your recent product launch videos. Are you currently tracking the customer acquisition cost originating specifically from those vertical video platforms? And what is the primary friction point preventing your current creative team from iterating those hooks faster?" I want you to pause and deeply imagine if you are that chief executive officer. You spend your entire week stressing over customer acquisition costs, creative bottlenecks, and burning through investor capital. You get on a call with a 20-year-old candidate, and instead of talking about their passion for social media or their favorite influencers, they immediately zero in on your most painful business metrics. They are speaking the language of executive outcomes. They are using terms like operational friction, iteration speed, and acquisition costs. In that exact fraction of a second, David completely annihilated the intern label. The CEO no longer viewed him as a student requiring training. The CEO viewed him as a strategic partner capable of solving a multi-million-dollar problem. Historical trends in recruitment clearly show that candidates who pivot the conversation toward business metrics and operational solutions drastically increase their potential outcomes for securing competitive offers, often at a significantly higher compensation tier than originally advertised. Once you establish this diagnostic frame, you must maintain it for the duration of the conversation. The executive will inevitably test your confidence. They will lean back and ask the dreaded question that derails 99% of beginners. They will say, "This portfolio is impressive, but looking at your background, you do not have any actual agency experience. How do we know you can handle a high-pressure corporate environment?" This is a critical juncture. The average candidate will immediately apologize, become defensive, and start making promises about how hard they are willing to work to make up for their lack of experience. Do not ever apologize for your background. You must reframe your lack of traditional experience as your absolute greatest competitive advantage in the modern market. You look directly into the camera and calmly explain the reality of the 2026 digital landscape. You explain that traditional marketing agencies are slow, bureaucratic, and heavily reliant on outdated, highly produced content models that no longer trigger algorithmic distribution. You articulate that your advantage is your native fluency. You have grown up inside the architecture of these platforms. You consume the culture organically, you understand the micro-trends before they hit the mainstream media, and you possess the agility to conceptualize, shoot, edit, and publish a highly optimized asset in the time it takes a traditional agency to schedule a single brainstorming meeting. You are not burdened by outdated corporate habits. You represent speed, native authenticity, and pure execution. By completely owning your narrative, you transform a perceived weakness into an undeniable asset. You make the executive realize that hiring someone with traditional experience is actually a liability because the market has fundamentally changed. As the conversation progresses, you continue to ask high-leverage questions. You ask about their current content approval process. You ask what their most successful organic campaign looked like over the last 12 months, and why they believe it succeeded. You ask what specific key performance indicators they are using to measure the success of their social media channels. Every single question you ask is strategically designed to extract valuable data about their internal operations while simultaneously reinforcing your position as a deeply analytical thinker. You are actively interviewing them to see if their company is a suitable environment for your specific skill set. This mutual evaluation dynamic creates a profound level of professional respect. You are demonstrating that your time and your talent are valuable, and you are not desperate to accept just any offer that comes your way. As the scheduled time for the meeting draws to a close, you must execute the final, most critical maneuver of the entire interview phase. You do not passively wait for them to tell you what the next steps are. You do not awkwardly ask when you might hear back from them. You must proactively control the close. You summarize the main pain points they revealed during the conversation, reiterating your understanding of their immediate needs. And then you set up the final strike. You inform them that based on everything discussed today, you are going to spend the next 24 hours building something highly specific to address their immediate bottleneck. The way you end this video call, and the exact document you send them the following morning will entirely dictate whether you receive a polite rejection or a formal, paid offer. Most people send a generic thank you email, completely wasting the final opportunity to prove their worth. You are going to send them a high-stakes, undeniable asset known as the 90-day execution roadmap, and the precise architecture of this document is specifically engineered to completely eliminate the final psychological barrier standing between you and a formal offer. You have to understand the fundamental fear that paralyzes every single hiring manager in the United States when they consider bringing on an entry-level candidate. Their greatest fear is not your lack of a college degree or your non-existent agency background. Their absolute greatest fear is onboarding friction. In the fast-paced corporate ecosystem of 2026, training a new employee is a massive drain on company resources. It pulls senior executives away from revenue-generating activities and forces them into a mentorship role they do not have the time to fulfill. Historical trends in human resources data clearly indicate that most entry-level hires represent a net loss in productivity for their first 3 months on the job. The 90-day execution roadmap is a highly strategic document designed to completely reverse this dynamic. It proves, categorically and on paper, that you are not a burden requiring constant supervision, but rather a plug-and-play operational asset, ready to execute from hour one. Let us examine the profound impact of this strategy through a detailed case study. Consider an applicant named Marcus, a 23-year-old living in Atlanta, who was aggressively pursuing a social media role at a rapidly scaling logistics software startup. Marcus had successfully navigated the permissionless portfolio phase and executed a brilliant diagnostic video interview with their director of communications. Most candidates in Marcus's position would send a generic follow-up email the next morning, thanking the director for their valuable time and politely expressing hope for a favorable decision. That passive approach completely surrenders all the leverage Marcus had just built. Instead, Marcus spent the night drafting a comprehensive, 3-phase operational blueprint detailing exactly what he would accomplish if given the role. When the director of communications opened their inbox the following morning, They did not find a desperate thank you note. They found a high-level strategic brief titled, First 90 Days, Organic Growth Integration Plan. Imagine if you are that director of communications. You are already impressed by this young candidate, but you are hesitant to pull the trigger because you simply do not have the bandwidth to hold someone's hand through the onboarding process. Then you open this document. Marcus has broken his proposed strategy into 3 distinct, highly actionable phases, eliminating all guesswork. For the first 30 days, which Marcus labeled the audit and alignment phase, he did not promise viral success. He focused entirely on foundational integration. He detailed how he would spend his first week conducting a forensic audit of their historical content data, spanning the previous 24 months. He outlined a systematic approach to cataloging their existing long-form video assets, identifying exact timestamps that could be repurposed into vertical formats. He proposed establishing a deep audience sentiment analysis protocol, reading through thousands of past comments to identify the exact language and pain points of their target demographic. He was speaking the language of risk mitigation. He was proving that his first month would be spent quietly building infrastructure, not wildly posting unapproved content and jeopardizing their brand safety. Moving into days 31 through 60, Marcus introduced the native content injection phase. This is where he outlined his proactive testing matrix. He provided a step-by-step workflow for how he would begin scripting, filming, and editing 3 low-fidelity, highly native vertical videos per week. He detailed the exact approval pipeline he would implement to ensure the director of communications only had to spend 5 minutes a week reviewing his assets before publication. He explained how he would leverage current audio trends and platform-specific text overlays to maximize algorithmic distribution. Crucially, Marcus did not guarantee any specific view counts or vanity metrics. Instead, he relied on historical trends from similar software companies to map out potential outcomes for viewer retention and community growth. He positioned himself as a disciplined scientist running controlled variables, seeking to establish a baseline of what actually resonates with their specific audience without burning through their paid advertising budget. Finally, for days 61 through 90, Marcus laid out the scale and optimization phase. He explained how he would analyze the data gathered from the previous month of testing to identify the core content pillars that yielded the highest retention rates. He detailed his strategy for doubling down on those winning formats, establishing a predictable, high-volume publishing calendar. Furthermore, he outlined a community management protocol, explaining how he would proactively engage with relevant industry leaders in the comment sections of their competitors to ethically siphon attention back to their own profile. By presenting this level of granular detail, Marcus completely removed the cognitive load from the hiring manager. He essentially wrote his own job description and provided the exact metric roadmap they could use to evaluate his performance. The delivery of this document is just as critical as the contents. You do not send this as a massive, unsolicited PDF attachment that might get flagged by corporate security filters. You host the roadmap on a clean, easily accessible digital workspace like a Notion page or a Google document with viewing permissions instantly enabled. Your follow-up email is brief, professional, and dripping with competence. You state that based on the operational bottlenecks discussed during the interview, you took the liberty of mapping out a preliminary execution plan to ensure a seamless transition if they decide to move forward. You are actively demonstrating the exact proactive communication style they desperately want in an employee. You are showing them in real time what it will feel like to work with you. You are responsive, analytical, and constantly anticipating the needs of the business before they even have to ask. When a decision maker receives a 90-day execution roadmap from a candidate with zero formal experience, the entire paradigm shifts. You are no longer competing against the stack of resumes on their desk. You are completely isolating yourself in a category of one. The executives looking at your roadmap are actively comparing your aggressive, structured proposal against the massive salaries of their current, underperforming traditional marketing agencies. Potential outcomes from this specific strategy routinely result in companies literally creating new positions entirely out of thin air just to secure the talent. They realize that letting a candidate with this level of operational clarity slip through their fingers and go to a competitor would be a massive strategic failure. However, presenting this level of undeniable value introduces a completely new, highly complex challenge that destroys countless young careers before they even begin. By executing the permissionless portfolio and delivering the 90-day execution roadmap, you have successfully convinced the executives that they absolutely need you. They are going to call you back and they are going to offer you a position. But because you technically have zero documented industry experience, their initial instinct will be to test your boundaries. They will attempt to leverage your lack of a resume against you to secure your high-level execution for the lowest possible financial compensation. They will present a lowball offer, disguising it as an incredible learning opportunity or an unpaid internship trial period. If you blindly accept their first offer out of pure excitement, you are financially handicapping yourself and instantly lowering your perceived value within their organization. The moment they present those numbers, you must pivot into an entirely different psychological arena. You must deploy a highly specific counter-negotiation framework designed exclusively for candidates with zero leverage on paper, but absolute leverage in reality. The exact phrasing you must use to politely reject an unpaid trial, the specific performance-based compensation structure you must counter with, and the psychological tactics required to secure a sustainable paid role without burning the relationship, are entirely rooted in understanding the fundamental difference between a subordinate employee seeking a favor and an invaluable asset negotiating a strategic partnership. In the current United States corporate landscape of 2026, the unpaid internship is a pervasive, fundamentally exploitative mechanism designed by legacy organizations to extract free labor under the guise of providing industry exposure. You must completely eradicate the word exposure from your professional vocabulary. Exposure does not pay your rent, it does not fund your software subscriptions, and it does not validate your expertise in the open market. When a hiring manager looks at your undeniable permissionless portfolio and your meticulously crafted 90-day execution roadmap, they are experiencing cognitive dissonance. They recognize your high-level execution, but their traditional corporate programming still sees a candidate with zero formal agency experience. Consequently, their default defensive maneuver is to offer an unpaid trial period or an insulting lowball hourly rate to mitigate what they perceive as their risk. If you blindly accept this initial unpaid offer out of a desperate desire to simply get your foot in the door, you instantly destroy all the psychological leverage you just spent days constructing. Think deeply about the psychology of value. Human beings, particularly executives managing massive corporate budgets, intrinsically value what they pay for and deeply discount what they receive for free. If you agree to work for $0, you are implicitly communicating that your strategic roadmap and your video editing skills have zero actual monetary value. You will be treated exactly like a traditional expendable intern. You will be assigned mundane administrative tasks. Your creative input will be ignored during high-level meetings, and historical trends show an incredibly low probability of unpaid roles ever converting into the lucrative, full-time positions you are actually targeting. You must approach this negotiation not as a grateful student, but as a deeply analytical consultant protecting the integrity of their service. Let us examine a highly specific case study of this exact negotiation dynamic. Consider a 21-year-old named Jessica, operating out of Miami, Florida. Jessica targeted a rapidly scaling, venture-backed hospitality group that was desperately trying to capture the young professional demographic on vertical video platforms. She executed the entire framework perfectly. She audited their failing content, built a stunning permissionless portfolio featuring 3 high-converting hooks shot at one of their local properties, and delivered a comprehensive 90-day execution roadmap directly to their chief marketing officer. The executive was entirely blown away and immediately requested a video call. At the end of the 30-minute interview, the executive smiled and offered Jessica a standard, 3-month unpaid internship, promising academic credit and incredible networking opportunities within the Miami hospitality scene. Most candidates in Jessica's position would experience a massive rush of adrenaline, thank the executive profusely, and accept the offer on the spot. Jessica, however, understood the psychology of the pivot. She did not get angry, she did not become defensive, and she absolutely did not act entitled. She maintained her diagnostic, professional frame and deployed a highly calculated counter-strategy, known as the performance-based pilot project. Jessica looked directly into the camera and said, "I completely understand the hesitation to bring on a full-time, salaried employee when my background does not fit the traditional corporate mold. You have a massive budget to protect, and you need to guarantee return on investment. However, I am not looking for an academic exercise or a shadowing opportunity. I am looking to execute the exact revenue-generating strategy one outlined in the roadmap. Therefore, I propose we bypass the traditional internship structure entirely and initiate a highly focused, 30-day paid pilot project. I want you to deeply analyze the exact architecture of that response. Jessica first validated the executive's completely rational fear of risk. She did not argue about her lack of experience. She acknowledged it as a valid data point. But then, she violently separated herself from the concept of an intern. She explicitly stated she was not there to shadow or learn, but to execute a revenue-generating strategy. Finally, she introduced the solution: a 30-day paid pilot project. This specific terminology is a masterclass in corporate psychology. By framing the engagement as a pilot project rather than a probationary employment period, you completely change the financial classification in the mind of the hiring manager. You are no longer asking them to navigate the complex human resources bureaucracy of onboarding a W-2 employee, setting up healthcare benefits, and dealing with payroll taxes. You are proposing a simple fixed-fee, 1099 independent contractor agreement for a strictly defined period of 30 days. Executives have discretionary budgets specifically allocated for external software, freelance creative work, and short-term consulting. You are making it incredibly easy for them to say yes by removing the administrative friction. Jessica then proceeded to anchor the compensation directly to the deliverables outlined in Phase 1 of her 90-day roadmap. She did not ask for a generic hourly wage. She stated, for the next 30 days, I will completely take over the vertical video production pipeline as outlined in Phase 1 of my brief. I will deliver 12 fully optimized, platform-native videos, manage the community engagement for those specific posts, and provide a comprehensive data analytics report at the end of week 4. For this initial pilot phase, my project fee is $2,500. If on day 31, the metrics do not align with the potential outcomes we discussed today, we part ways with zero hard feelings, and you retain full ownership of all the assets I built. But if I hit the exact retention targets outlined in my roadmap, we sit back down and negotiate a permanent, full-time salary commensurate with the value I am generating. This level of operational clarity completely paralyzes traditional hiring objections. Jessica removed all of their risk. She gave them an easy exit strategy if she failed to perform, but she also demanded immediate, tangible financial respect for her labor. She forced the executive to evaluate her proposition not as a charitable hiring decision, but as a highly logical business transaction. $2,500 is an absolutely microscopic sum for a venture-backed hospitality group in 2026. They routinely spend 3 times that amount on a single catered corporate lunch. When you frame your compensation as a flat project fee tied directly to specific, undeniable deliverables, you make the cost appear trivial compared to the massive potential upside of solving their digital marketing bottleneck. If the company pushes back on a paid pilot project and flatly refuses to offer any financial compensation for your proven execution, you must possess the immense psychological fortitude to walk away immediately. This is not a negotiation tactic. It is a fundamental rule of career survival. Historical trends heavily indicate that organizations unwilling to pay a nominal fee for a proven, low-risk pilot project are suffering from deep systemic cash flow issues or possess a fundamentally toxic corporate culture that systematically undervalues creative talent. If they will not pay you $2,000 today when you have literally handed them the blueprint to fix their business, they will never pay you a sustainable salary tomorrow. Walking away from a bad deal is the ultimate demonstration of professional leverage. It proves to yourself and to the market that your skills are in high demand and that you refuse to participate in an exploitative system. But let us look at the most statistically probable outcome when you execute this negotiation framework with precision. The executive, recognizing your absolute confidence and deeply desiring the strategic outcomes you outlined, agrees to the 30-day paid pilot project. They send over a simple vendor agreement, you sign the digital contract, and suddenly, you have officially secured your first paid role in the highly competitive United States digital media industry without a single day of traditional experience on your resume. You have successfully bypassed the algorithms, defeated the gatekeepers, and commanded financial respect entirely on your own terms. However, the exact moment that contract is signed, a completely new, vastly more terrifying reality sets in. The theoretical phase is officially over. You are no longer proposing a strategy. You are now legally obligated to execute it inside a high-pressure corporate environment. The clock starts ticking, and the expectations are astronomically high. You have exactly 30 days to prove that you are the tactical genius you presented in your portfolio. If you stumble during this critical onboarding phase, if you allow imposter syndrome to paralyze your output, or if you fail to navigate the complex internal politics of a remote corporate team, your pilot project will be violently terminated. The exact daily operational framework you must deploy on day 1, the specific communication protocols you must establish with your new manager to ensure total alignment, and the absolute most critical metric you must obsess over during your first week to guarantee that your 30-day pilot seamlessly converts into a lucrative long-term career. Requires a complete psychological shift from being a visionary strategist to a ruthless tactical operator. You have to understand that on day 1 of your 30-day pilot project, your new manager is experiencing intense private buyer remorse. We are operating in the highly volatile economic climate of 2026, where marketing budgets are continuously scrutinized by aggressive boards of directors. That chief marketing officer or creative director took a massive, undocumented professional risk by bypassing standard human resources protocols to bring an unproven entity into their corporate ecosystem. If you spend your first 48 hours constantly messaging them on internal communication channels, asking for basic software passwords, questioning where the brand guidelines are located, and demanding their scarce time to explain fundamental company operations, you are immediately confirming their absolute deepest fears. You are instantly becoming the exact administrative burden your 90-day roadmap promised to completely eliminate. Historical trends in probationary employment data explicitly show that candidates who require heavy hand-holding and constant micromanagement during their first week have a drastically lower probability of converting their pilot projects into lucrative, full-time salaries. Therefore, your daily operational framework on day 1 must be entirely centered around the concept of invisible integration. You must become a digital ghost who rapidly maps the entire corporate infrastructure without ever setting off a single administrative alarm. When you are granted access to their internal servers, whether that is a cloud drive, a project management software, or a central media repository, you do not wait for a formal guided tour from a senior staff member. You spend your first 10 uninterrupted hours conducting a forensic deep dive into every single folder available to you. You locate their historical brand assets, their discarded campaign briefs, and their previous quarterly performance reports. You independently reverse engineer their exact brand voice by reading months of past internal communications, customer support logs, and sales transcripts. You must figure out the answers to your own operational questions before you ever type them into a chat box. Let us look at a highly specific case study of this execution to understand the potential outcomes. Consider a 24-year-old named Thomas, operating out of Boston, Massachusetts. Thomas secured a paid pilot project at an aggressive financial technology startup focusing on personal wealth management. On his first Monday, Thomas was granted access to the company workspace and the central media drive. Instead of sending a generic introductory message asking the chief marketing officer what his first assignment should be, Thomas went completely silent. He spent 8 straight hours downloading gigabytes of raw, unused video files from a failed influencer campaign the company ran 6 months prior. He studied the company style guide he found buried deeply in an old human resources onboarding folder. He memorized their approved hex codes, their typography hierarchies, and their legal compliance disclaimers. By 4 o'clock that afternoon, Thomas had cut 3 brand new, highly optimized vertical video variations using their discarded, paid footage. He color graded them to match the exact brand specifications, added high-retention text overlays, and uploaded them to a private review link. This transitions perfectly into the specific communication protocols you must establish immediately to guarantee structural alignment and build unbreakable trust with your superiors. You never, under any circumstances, want your manager to wonder what you are doing or what they are paying for. If they have to proactively message you to ask for an end-of-day update, you have already failed the operational test. You must implement the proactive daily briefing protocol. At the exact same time every single evening, ideally 30 minutes before the standard close of business, you send a highly structured, emotionally detached summary of your daily output. Thomas did not send his manager a rambling, conversational paragraph about his creative process or how much he was enjoying the new role. He sent a hyper-efficient summary. He stated exactly what raw assets he audited. He provided the secure link to the 3 new video variations he built completely without being asked, and he outlined exactly the 3 specific analytical tasks he would execute the following morning. Imagine if you are that financial technology executive. You have been running back-to-back investor meetings all day. You are deeply stressed about an upcoming product launch, and you completely forgot that your new pilot project contractor even started working today. You check your messages before logging off, and you see the update from Thomas. Thomas did not ask for a single favor. Thomas did not complain about software access issues or a lack of direction. Thomas simply stated what he analyzed, delivered tangible, high-quality digital assets that cost you 0 minutes of your own time to produce, and clearly stated his tactical objectives for tomorrow. The potential outcomes of this specific communication style are astronomical. It completely short-circuits the corporate micromanagement impulse. When an executive sees that you are fundamentally capable of aggressive self-direction and proactive delivery, they stop trying to manage you and start empowering you. They give you access to larger budgets, more creative freedom, and significantly more internal leverage. This brings us to the absolute most critical metric you must obsess over during your first week. It is not your view count. It is not your baseline engagement rate. It is not how many new followers you generate for the brand in the first 5 days. The only metric that truly matters during your initial onboarding phase is your time to first frictionless delivery. The United States digital market is entirely obsessed with speed and iteration. The biggest bottleneck in any modern agency or corporate marketing department is the bloated, multi-tiered approval process that delays content publication by weeks. Your sole objective in week 1 is to visually prove that you can conceptualize, build, edit, and deliver a fully compliant brand-safe asset faster than anyone else currently employed in their organization, and that you can do it without requiring endless, painful revisions. You are actively training their executive team to trust your operational speed. If you outline a strategy that promises a completed video asset by Tuesday afternoon, you absolutely must deliver it by Tuesday morning. If you propose a community management audit on Wednesday, you present the preliminary data report on Thursday before they even log into their computers. By consistently and aggressively shrinking the timeline between ideation and final execution, you are continuously demonstrating the exact value proposition that got you hired in the first place. You are proving that your lack of traditional corporate experience is the very reason you are able to operate with such aggressive efficiency. You are not slowed down by the institutional inertia, the endless brainstorming meetings, and the bureaucratic red tape that paralyzes their senior staff. You are a fast, highly adaptable, high-output machine focused strictly on measurable deliverables. However, relentless execution and proactive communication only protect your career if the initial market data eventually aligns with your projected outcomes. You can be the most organized, frictionless contractor in the history of the company, but eventually your meticulously crafted content has to hit the open platforms. And this is where the brutal reality of the 2026 algorithmic landscape will test your psychological endurance to its absolute breaking point. You publish your first highly optimized, perfectly edited vertical video. You followed every single historical trend. You nailed the visual hook, the pacing is flawless, the audio is trending, and the call to action is crystal clear. And then you sit back and watch the analytics dashboard as the video completely flatlines. It gets zero algorithmic distribution. The viewer retention drops off an absolute cliff after 2 seconds, the comment section is a ghost town, and the customer acquisition cost metrics look completely disastrous. The chief marketing officer sees this miserable performance data, panics about the wasted budget, and instantly schedules an emergency video meeting to question the entire validity of your pilot project and your core competence. The corporate anxiety sets in. Everything you built is seemingly collapsing on day 4. But this failure is not the end of your career. It is a highly predictable, mathematically inevitable phase of the digital testing matrix. The exact analytical framework you must deploy during that emergency meeting, the specific data-driven language you must use to pivot their perception of the failure into a strategic victory, and the precise method for reverse engineering the negative data to build an unstoppable asset pipeline depends entirely on your ability to remove your ego from the equation. When that emergency calendar invite pops up in your inbox, human nature dictates that you will feel an overwhelming urge to become defensive. You will want to blame the platform algorithm, the time of day you posted, or the raw footage the company provided you. You must completely suppress this instinct. You must enter that virtual meeting room not as a criticized artist defending their creative vision, but as a forensic data scientist analyzing a statistical anomaly. The executive sitting across from you is acting entirely on emotion and financial fear. Your immediate objective is to absorb that emotional panic and neutralize it with cold, indisputable, highly structured logic. If you apologize profusely and act defeated, you validate their fear that hiring you was a mistake. If you take extreme ownership of the data and pivot the narrative, you permanently solidify your position as an irreplaceable asset. The specific data-driven language you must deploy is rooted in the concept of baseline acquisition and negative space testing. When the video call begins, you do not wait for the executive to interrogate you. You proactively take control of the screen share and pull up the native analytics dashboard. You calmly explain that in the hypersaturated digital environment of 2026, launching a new strategic directive is never about achieving immediate viral distribution on the very first attempt. Historical trends in performance marketing dictate that the first variable tested is mathematically likely to fail. You articulate that this flatline video was not a failure of execution. It was a highly controlled, incredibly cheap data acquisition exercise. You tell them that you intentionally pushed a specific visual hook and audio combination to establish a concrete, mathematical baseline of what their audience actively rejects. You are reframing the perceived disaster into a calculated, necessary step within your broader 90-day execution roadmap. You are teaching them how modern algorithmic testing actually works. Let us examine a highly detailed case study of this exact dynamic unfolding in real time. Consider a 23-year-old named Emily, operating out of Chicago, Illinois, who had secured a pilot project with a rapidly expanding, direct-to-consumer wellness brand. Her first major vertical video, which she spent 3 days meticulously editing, completely bombed on the open platforms. It received less than 500 views and triggered 0 outbound clicks to the company website. The founder of the company, highly anxious about their quarterly revenue targets, immediately called an emergency sync. The founder was visibly frustrated and explicitly questioned if Emily actually understood the target demographic. Most entry-level candidates would have completely folded under this pressure, stumbled through their words, and likely resigned by the end of the week out of sheer embarrassment. Emily, however, had prepared for this exact scenario. She did not apologize for the algorithm. Instead, she shared her screen and pulled up the retention graph for the failed video. She pointed directly to the exact millisecond where the viewership collapsed. She broke down the negative data with surgical precision. She explained to the founder that the 80% drop-off at the 2-second mark conclusively proved that their standard corporate logo placement in the opening frame was acting as a massive scroll trigger. The audience immediately recognized it as a traditional advertisement and swiped away before the actual value proposition could even be delivered. Emily explained that this single piece of negative data was incredibly valuable because it definitively solved a debate the marketing team had been having for months. They now had absolute, undeniable proof that front-loading corporate branding destroys organic reach. Then, she executed the ultimate professional maneuver. Emily did not just offer a theoretical analysis of why the video failed. She presented the immediate, tangible solution. She closed the analytics dashboard and opened her media bin. She revealed 3 brand new, fully edited variations of the exact same video concept. But this time, she had completely removed the corporate branding from the first 3 seconds. She replaced the failed visual hook with an aggressive, native text overlay that directly addressed a painful customer problem, keeping the branding hidden until the final call to action. She looked at the founder and stated that because they successfully identified the failing variable on day 4 of the pilot project, they could now deploy these optimized variations immediately without wasting another dollar of the production budget. Imagine if you are that founder. You entered that virtual meeting ready to terminate a contract and write off the pilot project as a total loss. But within 10 minutes, this 23-year-old contractor completely dismantled your anxiety. She did not take the failure personally. She used your company data to teach you something profound about your own customer base, and she already put in the unprompted labor to fix the problem before the meeting even started. The potential outcomes of this interaction are incredibly predictable. The founder went from experiencing intense buyer remorse to feeling absolute relief and profound professional respect. They realized they had not hired an intern. They had hired a strategic operator who thrives in high-pressure environments. The second variation Emily posted that afternoon, built entirely on the reverse-engineered negative data, aligned perfectly with historical algorithmic trends and generated a massive influx of targeted traffic, completely validating her analytical approach. This process of reverse-engineering negative data is the foundational secret to building an unstoppable media presence for any brand in the United States. You must become obsessed with analyzing the precise moments of failure. If a video has a high completion rate but 0 comments, your call to action is fundamentally broken. If a video has high engagement but terrible watch time, your hook was misleading and you failed to deliver on the initial promise. Every single metric is a diagnostic clue telling you exactly how to calibrate the next iteration. By communicating this granular level of understanding to your executives, you insulate yourself from the natural volatility of social media. You train your leadership team to stop looking at individual video performance and start looking at the macro trajectory of the data acquisition process. You transform yourself from a disposable content creator into an indispensable growth engineer. But finding that winning formula introduces a completely different, highly dangerous corporate dynamic. Once you isolate the exact variable that triggers massive algorithmic distribution, your content will inevitably hit a viral growth trajectory. The brand will suddenly experience a massive spike in attention, community engagement, and inbound leads. The executives will be absolutely thrilled, and they will immediately assume that you can sustain this impossible level of output indefinitely for the exact same low pilot project fee. This is the exact moment where the vast majority of successful digital operators burn out and destroy their own careers. They allow the company to infinitely scale their responsibilities without ever scaling their compensation or their internal resources. If you do not forcefully control the transition from a successful pilot project to a sustainable full-time integration, you will become a victim of your own success. The specific psychological trigger you must deploy on day 28 of your pilot project to force a massive salary negotiation, the exact corporate leverage you now possess to demand structural support, and the precise legal language you must use to officially secure your permanent position before the final clock runs out, are entirely dependent on your ability to recognize the exact moment the power dynamic violently shifts in your favor. By day 28 of your 30-day pilot project, the historical trends of successful beta tests dictate that you have completely transformed the baseline metrics of the company. You have reverse-engineered their failing content, isolated the exact algorithmic triggers that their target demographic responds to, and subsequently generated a sustained influx of high-retention viewership. The negative data has been purged, the positive variables have been scaled, and you have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that your strategic roadmap was not theoretical, but a highly accurate prediction of market behavior. But this is precisely where the corporate machine will attempt to exploit your youth and your lack of traditional resume experience. The executives will look at the massive surge in engagement, the skyrocketing community growth, and the significantly lowered customer acquisition costs, and their immediate instinct will be to maintain the status quo at the absolute lowest financial price point possible. They will want to extend your initial pilot contract for another 3 months, framing it as an extended probation period, a continuous trial, or a fantastic learning opportunity. If you passively accept this extension, you are actively choosing to devalue your own proven labor. You are permitting them to treat you as a disposable intern, when the reality is that you are now the undisputed architect of their current digital growth cycle. You are no longer an unproven risk. You are the core engine of their new attention economy. Let us examine a highly specific case study of this exact leverage point to understand the potential outcomes. Consider a 25-year-old named Alexander, living in Austin, Texas in 2026. Alexander was executing his pilot project for a mid-sized business-to-business software company. On day 25, one of his highly optimized native vertical videos completely shattered the company record for organic reach, driving hundreds of highly qualified inbound leads directly to their sales team and dropping their cost per acquisition from $45 down to $12. The chief revenue officer, absolutely ecstatic about the sudden influx of cheap attention, immediately messaged Alexander asking him to double the video output for the following week under the exact same initial flat fee. Most entry-level candidates would be so blinded by the praise from a senior executive that they would instantly agree, working through the weekend for free just to maintain the positive momentum and hope it eventually leads to a job offer. Alexander did not do that. He understood the deep psychology of corporate leverage. He politely declined the request to arbitrarily double the output, stating clearly that his current bandwidth under the pilot agreement was strictly allocated to maintaining the high quality of the originally agreed-upon deliverables. Then, on day 28, Alexander triggered the forced transition protocol. He proactively requested a formal video conference with the Chief Revenue Officer and the Chief Marketing Officer to present the final, comprehensive pilot project data report. Imagine if you are sitting in that virtual boardroom. You are Alexander. You do not start the meeting by asking if they liked your work, and you absolutely do not beg for a full-time job. You share your screen and present a meticulously structured data dashboard. You show them exactly where their metrics were on day 1, completely flatlined and burning capital. Then you show them the aggressive upward trajectory they are currently riding on day 28. You quantify the exact financial value of the inbound leads you generated, explicitly tying your organic content strategy to their direct bottom line. And then you execute the transition, You look directly at the executives and state the pilot phase was designed to prove structural viability, and the data clearly shows we have achieved total market alignment. The current pilot contract officially expires in 48 hours. To sustain and scale this exact growth model, we need to transition from an external contractor framework to a fully integrated, permanent infrastructure. This is the exact moment where you must aggressively demand structural support. You cannot scale a viral social media presence alone without rapidly approaching severe clinical burnout. Historical trends in the digital marketing sector conclusively show that solo operators who attempt to manage strategy, videography, complex editing, and intensive community management simultaneously will inevitably crash within 6 months, taking the company metrics down with them. You must use your newly acquired leverage to build a protective moat around your operational bandwidth. Alexander did not just ask for a competitive base salary. He presented a comprehensive operational budget required to sustain his specific strategy. He demanded paid subscriptions to enterprise-level data analytics software, a dedicated monthly budget for external freelance video editors to handle the raw volume of low-level content cutting, and a specific monthly financial allowance for aggressively testing new digital ad creatives. When you present these demands, you must use highly specific, non-emotional business language. You do not say that you are working really hard and you need some extra help. You say, to maintain this exact velocity of lead generation and prevent catastrophic operational bottlenecks, I require these specific budgetary allocations and structural resources. By framing your demands entirely around the preservation of their new revenue streams, you force the executives to realize that denying your requests will actively harm the company and destroy the momentum you just built. The executives are no longer evaluating your lack of a college degree or your absence of traditional agency experience. They are evaluating the mathematical cost of losing the only person in their organization who actually understands how to successfully manipulate the current digital ecosystem. Furthermore, you must secure the precise legal and financial language in your transition contract. You are not just negotiating a base salary. You must negotiate performance-based incentives. You propose a tier-based bonus structure directly tied to the key performance indicators you established during the pilot project. If you hit a specific retention milestone or lower the customer acquisition cost by another 20%, you trigger an automatic financial bonus. This aligns your personal financial growth directly with the company revenue, transforming you from a fixed-cost employee into a scalable investment. If they push back on your comprehensive proposal and attempt to force you into a standard, low-tier intern salary with zero structural support, you must deploy the ultimate professional ultimatum. You clearly reiterate the potential outcomes of the strategy you built, remind them that you personally retain the proprietary knowledge of the exact testing matrix that achieved these results, and politely state that if they cannot meet the structural and financial requirements of the new role, you will be forced to conclude your services at the end of the pilot contract and transition your portfolio to a competitor who possesses the infrastructure to value aggressive growth. You must be completely willing to walk away from the table. The very moment they realize you are perfectly comfortable packing up your intellectual property and leaving their metrics to crash, the traditional corporate facade drops entirely. In Alexander's case, the executives took exactly 2 hours to approve his entire proposal. They drafted a comprehensive employment contract, complete with the requested software budgets, the freelance editing allowance, and a starting salary with performance bonuses that completely shattered the standard entry-level pay scale for the Austin market. He successfully manufactured his own multi-tiered corporate position out of thin air in less than 30 days. He beat the automated resume algorithm, he bypassed the human resources department, and he commanded absolute financial respect from senior leadership. However, securing the permanent contract and the budget is merely the completion of the baseline objective. Once you are officially entrenched inside the corporate structure, you face the final, ultimate challenge of the modern digital worker. You are now a hyper-competent outsider surrounded by legacy employees who are deeply threatened by your rapid ascent and your direct line to the executive team. The exact internal political maneuvers you must master to protect your new position, the strategy for continuously increasing your budget without triggering corporate resentment, and the definitive blueprint for leveraging this specific role into a massive career advantage requires you to fundamentally understand and manipulate the silent, highly complex art of corporate diplomacy. You are now officially inside the fortress. You have secured the salary, you have negotiated the operational budget, and you have established a direct line of communication to the executive board. But you must instantly recognize that your rapid, unorthodox ascent has placed a massive, invisible target directly on your back. In the United States corporate environment of 2026, institutional hierarchy is deeply entrenched and fiercely protected. When a young, hyper-competent operator bypasses the traditional human resources bureaucracy, ignores the standard chain of command, and proves that massive digital growth can be achieved without a decade of traditional agency experience, the legacy employees will instinctively view you as an existential threat. The mid-level managers, the traditional public relations directors, and the senior copywriters who have spent years slowly climbing the corporate ladder through careful political maneuvering are watching your every move with intense scrutiny and deeply rooted suspicion. They view your sudden influence as an anomaly that disrupts their established order, and human nature dictates that they will subconsciously, or sometimes actively, attempt to force you back into the traditional corporate hierarchy by stalling your projects, hoarding necessary brand assets, or heavily criticizing your unconventional methods in company-wide communications. If you attempt to fight these legacy employees head-on, if you complain to the chief executive officer about their lack of cooperation, or if you act arrogant about your superior algorithmic metrics, you will trigger a corporate civil war that you cannot possibly win. Historical trends in organizational behavior clearly demonstrate that executives will ultimately side with institutional stability over a rogue digital operator, regardless of how good your viewership analytics are. Therefore, you must deploy a highly calculated psychological framework, known as asymmetrical credit distribution, to completely neutralize internal resentment before it ever fully materializes. Let us examine a highly specific case study of this diplomatic execution. Consider a 24-year-old named Chloe, operating out of Seattle, Washington, who secured a highly paid digital role at a rapidly scaling environmental tech firm. Within her first 60 days, Chloe completely overhauled their vertical video strategy, resulting in a massive influx of organic traffic that dwarfed anything the legacy marketing team had achieved in the previous 3 years. Predictably, the traditional director of communications felt deeply threatened and began implementing arbitrary, week-long legal approval processes specifically designed to slow down Chloe's rapid publication schedule. Most young operators would become furious, viewing this as blatant sabotage, and immediately escalate the issue to upper management. Chloe, however, understood the psychology of the corporate ego. She recognized that the director of communications was acting out of fear of obsolescence. Instead of fighting, Chloe weaponized her next major algorithmic success. When her following campaign achieved record-breaking viewer retention and directly resulted in a massive spike in software demonstration bookings, Chloe drafted a company-wide internal email to report the data. But she did not take the credit. She explicitly wrote that this new viral success was entirely made possible because she meticulously studied the foundational brand messaging guidelines authored by the Director of Communications 5 years prior. She publicly stated that she merely translated the director's brilliant, established corporate narrative into a vertical video format. I want you to step back and imagine if you are that director of communications. You are actively preparing to undermine this new employee, but suddenly, in front of the entire executive board, this employee is praising your historical work and attributing their current massive success directly to your past leadership. You are completely psychologically disarmed. You cannot attack the person who is publicly elevating your status. By willingly distributing the credit for the victory, Chloe completely neutralized the internal threat, transformed an active adversary into a vocal ally, and permanently removed the artificial bottlenecks from her publication pipeline. Once you have secured your internal alliances and fortified your position within the company, you face the next massive hurdle of the corporate digital operator, continuously scaling your operational budget without triggering the financial resentment of the executive board. As your organic content strategy continues to prove its immense value, you will inevitably reach a point of diminishing returns based on your current resources. You will need a massive increase in capital to hire dedicated video editors, secure enterprise-level analytical software, and begin deploying heavy paid amplification behind your top-performing organic assets. But if you walk into the chief financial officer's office and simply ask for $50,000 because you want to make better videos, you will be immediately rejected and permanently labeled as a financial liability. You must execute budget expansion through a highly specific protocol called the Revenue Correlated Asymmetric Ask. Executives in 2026 do not care about your creative vision. They care exclusively about mathematical leverage. Let us look at how an operator named Daniel in New York City executed this flawlessly. Daniel was managing the digital presence for a high-ticket direct-to-consumer furniture brand. He needed his monthly operational budget increased from $5,000 to $25,000 to completely dominate the market share on short-form platforms. He did not send an emotional email complaining about being overworked. He scheduled a formal presentation with the core executive team and presented a singular, undeniable data dashboard. He highlighted 3 specific organic videos from the past quarter that had achieved massive algorithmic distribution. He then tracked the exact customer journey from those specific videos directly to the checkout page, proving that those 3 free assets generated over $150,000 in verified top-line revenue. Daniel then isolated his exact bottleneck. He explained that his current, limited budget only allowed him to produce 4 of these high-quality assets per month. He logically mapped out the potential outcomes based on these established historical trends. He stated, the data clearly shows that for every $1 we currently invest in this specific vertical video infrastructure, we are generating a predictable $6 in pipeline revenue. I am requesting an immediate $20,000 budget increase, explicitly to hire 2 dedicated external editors. This will allow us to scale our output from 4 assets a month to 20 assets a month. If the historical conversion trends simply hold flat, this budget increase is mathematically projected to generate an additional $300,000 in top-line revenue by the end of the next quarter. By framing the budget increase not as an internal expense, but as a heavily discounted investment required to unlock highly predictable revenue, Daniel made it financially irresponsible for the executives to say no. He completely bypassed their emotional hesitation by grounding his massive financial request entirely in their own proven, historical performance data. This is how you build an absolute fortress around your career. You master the internal politics, you consistently prove undeniable financial value through raw data, and you continuously leverage their capital to scale your own operational infrastructure. But you must fundamentally realize that this corporate position, regardless of how lucrative or powerful it becomes, is not the final destination of your professional journey. You are currently operating inside a highly paid, risk-free laboratory. The company is funding your education, paying for your software, and allowing you to test complex algorithmic strategies using their massive advertising budgets. You are building something vastly more valuable than a high salary. You are building asymmetric career capital. Every single system you optimize, every single retention framework you successfully deploy, and every single crisis you navigate must be meticulously documented in your own private, personal archives. You are literally writing the definitive operational manual for how to capture and convert human attention in the modern United States economy. As you continue to drive massive, undeniable results for your primary employer, the executives at partner companies, rival agencies, and competing brands will begin to notice the massive shift in market dominance. They will aggressively seek out the architect of this growth. You will begin receiving highly lucrative, unsolicited offers to consult for external organizations, completely outside the scope of your current employment. The exact legal frameworks you must deploy to navigate these external consulting offers without violating your existing corporate non-disclosure agreements, the specific architectural blueprint for transitioning your internal systems into a fully independent, highly scalable digital infrastructure, and the precise moment you must pull the trigger to transform from an in-house corporate employee into the founder of your own 7-figure digital empire.